What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can run AI models on your Linux desktop.
So as you can see here, I do have a AI model running locally on my own computer. As you can see right here, this is all running natively here. And it is not very, it's not very quick. But that is just how it goes. We don't have the highest end hardware in my computer right now. But it is still pretty decent. We're running a Ryzen 7 3700X and an RTX 3070. So that is an 8GB GDDR6, I believe, graphics card. And we also have 32GB of RAM. So it is, while it is not the fastest when it comes to this sort of thing, it is still, it's still pretty decent. It gets the job done. This system is actually more built for gaming rather than AI stuff, and hopefully soon I will actually get some better hardware for running AI models. So as you can see here, I told it to write me a sentence that uses every letter of the English alphabet, and it gave me the classic, "The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog." So that uses every single letter of the English alphabet, and I'm a little too lazy to double check that right now, but I am pretty sure that is correct because I've seen this a million times. So now let's go ahead and tell it to do something different. What do we want it to do? Let's say, so I'm going to tell it to give me some tips on how to run a small business for IT managed services, because that is something that I'm interested in doing and I want to learn. So let's see what this AI model can give us here. And let's go ahead and hit generate. And as you can see with the text generation here, it is not very fast. So that is because we are not running the best hardware for this type of thing, but it's better than running nothing. So it does run processor and GPU because I have it set to run auto devices. So that way it can trade off workload between GPU and CPU. So let's see what it gives us. Let's go ahead and bring up our thing here, our terminal that shows us what exactly is going on. I'll even add a few spaces to show when it is done. That way it'll tell us how long exactly it took and how many tokens per second. All right, so after 229.87 seconds at 0.41 tokens per second, let's see what it gives us. So here are some tips for running a successful small business in the IT managed service industry. 1. Identify a niche market or specialization. 2. Develop strong relationships with clients. 3. Invest in training and certifications. 4. Implement efficient processes and tools for remote management. 5. Continuously monitor and improve security measures. And 6. Stay up to date with trends and innovations in technology. While I do agree, and these are some very good tips, these are generally blanket statements, but I don't really expect AI to really get the nuances of running business. But hey, it knows better than I do because it samples from GPT-4, because the model that I am using is the Chevin-Lo GPT-4X Alpaca. So this is trained on responses from GPT-4, so I would actually trust this a little bit better than my own intuition. So if I want to give it some questions and have some appropriate answers on how I can expand my business, which quite frankly does not exist yet, so I can't even say that it is not right here. But this does seem like pretty sound advice. So someone who did work in an IT space before, especially the IT managed service industry, all of these things do seem to be pretty pertinent, especially staying up to date with trends and innovations in technology and continuously monitor and improve security measures. So those are really, really good pieces of advice. So now that I showed you that it actually works, let's go ahead and show you how you can run it yourself. So first things first, we are going to go to the Uba Booga. Yep, that is exactly what it is. Uba Booga. Text Generation Web UI GitHub. So this is the interface that I was using that runs on Gradio. So all that stuff might sound a little bit out there, but I'm going to give you a step-by-step instruction on how exactly to execute this and run it. It does have one-click installers, so it says, but I've noticed that extracting this and running the .sh file did not work for me. At least not right away. There might be a little bit of configuration that needs to be done beforehand to get it to run flawlessly, but from what I noticed, it is not a quote-unquote one-click installer, but that could just be my setup because I am running Linux Mint. However, that is not what we're going to be using. We're going to be using the full-on installation method. So the first thing that we're going to do, or the first thing that we're going to need, is Conda. So this is how we're going to be running all of our Python libraries that actually run our AI stuff. So what you can do is you can go ahead and just search Miniconda, because that is what I'm using. It is a very minimal install of Conda, and it works great. So as you can see here, I have the Miniconda Linux 64-bit installed. So now we go back to our terminal. Wrong terminal, I'm downloading an AI model myself. That I'll show you how to do in a bit. Let's go ahead and open a terminal, and we are going to cd into our downloads folder, and we are going to sh Miniconda latest linux.86_64, or you could just type mini with a capital M after you download the .sh file and press tab, and that will auto-complete for the script. You go ahead and press enter, and it'll tell you, in order to continue the installation process, please review the license and agreement. So you go and click enter, you go and scroll all the way to the bottom. This is a EULA. It'll ask you whether you want to agree or disagree. You type yes, and it is going to ask you where you want this install location. So it is going to be here. It is going to be home arch Miniconda in my case. In your case, it is going to be your username, since we are not running this as root. By the way, you do not want to run this as root. That way you have the ability to read and write data using the Ooba Booga text generation web UI. You go ahead and hit enter. I'm not going to do this because I already have it installed, so I'm going to omit this process altogether, but all you gotta do is hit enter. It'll ask you another question if you want to initialize on startup. I do not like it because it has base in parentheses indicating that you have Conda running as your base environment, which I don't want. So I actually just hit enter. It is no by default, so we can go and close, or at least close this .sh. We're going to go back to our main home folder, and we are going to create a new folder. That way we can keep everything organized. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it easier. Alright, now let's go ahead and make our directory. So I'm going to make directory, mkdir, and we are going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this AI2, because I already have an AI folder to keep everything organized. And now that we have our AI2 folder, let's cd into AI2. And you can see there is nothing in there if I list with ls. And we're going to go back to the Ooba Booga text generation web UI. We are going to install build essentials. So with our Ubuntu-based distribution here, which I recommend everybody use an Ubuntu-based distribution since it's fairly set up pretty well, whether that be Pop! OS, Ubuntu itself, or even some other one that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Just because it has that sudo apt, then it makes it so much easier because you have a lot of other things already built in. So we're going to go and highlight this, middle click that into our terminal. I already have all of this set up, so it is just going to say 0 installed and 0 removed. Everything is to the latest version. And now we are going to do our conda create -n textgen python 3.10.9. I already have that, so I'm going to call this textgen2. So this is the command that tells you what environment you're going to be running. So this is now going to be textgen2 running on Python 3.10.9. It's going to collect the metadata packages, and it's going to install all of these packages to get everything up and working. This is going to take a little while, so just sit tight and just sit back and relax as it does it. So now, actually that didn't take very long, so to activate this environment, we're going to use conda activate textgen2, and we can highlight that, middle click, since we are on Linux, and that is an amazing feature, I love it. We're going to activate our textgen2, and now we have textgen2 as a precursor to our terminal. We're going to go back, and we are going to use the Linux/WSL NVIDIA command here. So that is pip3 install torch vision torch audio. That is going to install some of our prerequisites such as Torch, Torch Vision, and Torch Audio. These are just tools that are used by the web UI to actually interface with your hardware, as far as I'm aware. But I am absolutely by no means an expert when it comes to Python. Okay, now that we have those installed from pip, we are going to go and now install the web UI. So they make it pretty easy here by listing everything out. So that way you can just highlight, go to your terminal, middle click, press enter, and it does everything for you. Then we are going to just follow all the steps for the rest of the install process. Now mind you, all this stuff is not very small, so it does take up quite a bit of room. So make sure you have plenty of space. I would recommend at least 250 gigabytes. Even though that's not what it's going to take, I would recommend having at least 250 gigabytes free of the drive that you're going to be using for running your AI, because it is huge. The files are huge, the models are huge, and everything else that you're going to be using is going to be absolutely enormous. But that is just what comes with running AI. Not a very mature market just yet. So we don't have super condensed versions that are megabytes or even just a few gigabytes. So we're going to have a lot of space taken up. All right, now that we did pip install -r requirements, there's another thing that was not mentioned in the install script that I had run into quite a few times, is we need to install the CUDA toolkit. Since I'm running an NVIDIA GPU, we are going to do, while we have our TextGen 2 environment open, going to do, pip install CUDA toolkit. And now that should solve any issues that we have running into hardware acceleration. Now I know we do have to have the CUDA toolkit. Oh, okay, it is not pip install, it is conda install CUDA toolkit. I believe that's correct. Ah, there we go. So now this will help with any hardware acceleration issues that we are having. We're going to type Y for yes, to agree to download and install. We are going to hit enter and it is done. Okay, so now we can presumably start our interface. But first we do need to in fact have an AI model for it to run. So what I'm going to do, since I have some already downloaded, I'm going to go into my models, and I'm just going to, let's see, what's a nice easy one? We can do the Chevin-Low, because I'm pretty sure that one doesn't require too much. I'm just going to move that over to my AI2, text generation web UI, models, and place that in our models folder. So I just copied it and now I'm pasting it here. And just that alone, I don't know if you can see it here because it's a little bit small, that is 52.1 gigabytes in itself. So yes, it does take up a lot of space. And now after an unbelievably long amount of time, we can go ahead and actually start our web UI. So now, since we are already in our text generation web UI folder, we can do Python server.py. And since that Chevin-Low GPT-4X Alpaca is our only model, it will load that by default instead of having you choose it later. Now, something I don't have you looking at right now is actually my system monitor. So something that will give it a good indication of how much longer it has to load is not only this right here, loading checkpoint shards, but how much RAM you are using. So I do recommend having at least 32 gigabytes of RAM if you're planning on running AI. Yeah, it is a bit much, but it, as you can see, it might be necessary. And just in case, I also allocated myself 34 gigabytes. Yes, gigabytes of swap file. That way, if I have a little bit of an overflow, I have a little bit of headroom. I mean, a lot of headroom. And I did notice that one of my other AI models, a 30 billion parameter model, actually did max out my RAM and almost max out my swap file, but I was not able to get that one to run, or at least not run fast, because I just don't have enough RAM for it. So I need at least 64 gigabytes if I'm going to run a 30 billion parameter model. So if you take a look for a second there, I was maxed out on my RAM, and my swap file actually did go up quite a bit. So definitely more than 32 gigabytes of RAM is recommended if you're going to be running AI. So I should probably add that as a disclaimer to the beginning of this video. That way nobody gets a little too far into it and finds out that they can't run this. So definitely need a lot of RAM to get this going. Okay, so this is another error that actually is pretty common here, is you run out of CUDA allocation. So another way to fix that is using this command right here that I have copied in my start script. So if you would like, you can copy this right here, this start script. I'll leave it up for a second so that way you get an idea. And that works very well for me. You can actually add this just to your terminal and it should fix that problem. So let's go ahead and start that loading process all over again, since that did take quite a bit. And I do highly recommend putting it into a start script like this, because it just automates the entire process, and you don't have to remember every individual step. Let's see here. Okay, now it looks like we are ready to start at 127.0.0.1:7860. So that 7860 is our port. So I guess something to do with the GPU memory that I have right here. --GPU-memory, 4500 MB. That's what that MI is. I guess that does actually help quite a bit and lets you actually run your script. So let's try again. And as you can see, we got our stuff up and running. Let's go to chat to replicate ChatGPT, since we are running GPT-4 x Alpaca. All right, so let's see. What do I want it to do? Let's try the same thing that we did before. Write me a sentence using every letter from the English alphabet. Okay, it seems like it wants to roleplay, so I'm not into that. Let's see. I want you to write me a sentence using every letter from the English alphabet. Let's see if it listens this time. Okay, so it looks like it's going with a quick brown fox who jumped over the lazy dog again. So that is actually pretty promising, so that way we do have a little bit of coherency, and it is giving us relevant information. Let's go ahead and ask it one more thing, the same question that we asked before. What is some good advice for running your own IT managed service business? Okay, it gave us something a little bit different with a quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog's eye. I've never heard that one before, but that still does work, I guess. So let's see what it says for some good advice of running your own IT managed service business. Alright, looks like it gave us another very similar response. To successfully run an IT managed service business, it is important to focus on customer satisfaction, build strong relationships with clients, invest in training and certifications, establish efficient processes, and stay up to date with industry trends. So that does seem a little, that does seem like very coherent and very similar information to what I requested of it before. So it seems like everything is working with our new Text Gen 2 environment. And one last question you might have is, how exactly do I download these AI models? So here on the Ooba Booga Text Generation Web UI GitHub page, down near the Downloading Models section, you can go to this link right here that says Hugging Face, since this is definitely the main place to go, and it is tightly integrated with the Text Generation Web UI. So if we go here, you can see that we have GPT-2, GPT-2 Medium, and these are all just a bunch of large language models that have been developed by the AI community. So you can test and try whichever ones that you feel like are a good match for you. One that I highly recommend for just fun and let's say you're into roleplay is Pygmalion. So Pygmalion 6B. So how do you download this model? So I actually made up a script here. This was actually recorded after I finished recording the video, so I just remembered it as I was walking away from finishing the video. So here is the download script that I made. The only thing that is different from the start script, instead of server.py, we are using download-model.py, and that will initiate this interface right here, or lack thereof. So this command line interface, let's say you don't see any of these here that you like, or none of them really tickle your fancy. So let's say you don't want to use opt or Galactica or Pythia. I actually never used any of them, so I can't even tell you how they are. you want to add your own. So you type L for manually specify a Hugging Face model, and it'll ask you for an input. So when you find an AI model that you want to use, you can click this button right here, copy model name to clipboard. It'll say copied. You go to your terminal, paste, and press enter. So I already have it downloaded, but it will download that model for you. So that way it takes all the guesswork out of actually finding the model and how exactly to configure it so it can be used.
Well guys, it is easy as that as to run your own AI models at home on your Linux desktop, and you can do it yourself if you follow these simple instructions. If you guys like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. This is Arch, and I will see you in the next video.